You might have noticed all across social media in the last 5 years or so, maybe slightly less, there has been this massive influx of pro-Iranian monarchists, people advocating to reinstall the Iranian monarchy led by the son of the former Shah of Iran, who was ousted in the 1979 revolution there to establish the current Iranian government, the current Iranian regime, whatever you want to call it, the Islamic Republic of Iran. He was a deeply unpopular mass torturer and oppressor who was installed by the US and the British in a coup in 1955, and then he was overthrown in 1979. And now his son travels around the world, catering to the Iranian diaspora, the Iranian monarchist diaspora, the kinds of people who call themselves Persians and not Iranians because they hate themselves so much, acting like he's a legitimate representative of the Iranian people. And he's always on the forefront of any agitation against the Iranian government, saying you know what, we should get rid of them and install me as a monarch again. Wink, wink, I definitely give you democracy. I'm definitely not just a puppet of US and Israeli intelligence. Well, there was an article in liberal Zionist genocide rag Haaretz that kind of blew off the lid on all of that this past week. Turns out that literally everything to do with the former Shah of Iran, this social media blitz, him getting tons of random supporters on social media who didn't exist before, coming out of the woodwork, supporting him, talking about how we need to restore the monarchy in Iran, blah, blah, blah. The Islamic regime is so bad, we need to restore the monarchy. We need Western values. Let's go, woohoo. Real democracy, liberty, and freedom. Turns out it was all an Israeli op. The Israeli influence operation in Iran pushing to reinstate the Shah monarchy. Let's read through this article and comment on it. Citizen Lab found that an online network pushed out deepfake videos during Israel's airstrikes on Tehran's Evin prison. An investigation by The Marker and Haaretz, The Marker is just Haaretz, reveals that the Persian language online campaigns were indirectly funded by Israel. In early 2023, Reza Pahlavi, who is the son of the last Shah of Iran, as I said, he was ousted in 1979, calls himself the Crown Prince. He declares himself the legitimate ruler of Iran with the right to dictate its future by literal blood right, by right of birth, by right of kings. Really great there, right? Really great representative of the West and of Israel. And before we go on, I want to explain the reason why Israel is so concerned with Iran is because previously, before 1979, Iran was one of the few countries in the Middle East that was aligned with the West and thus aligned with Israel. So the US used to rely on this 2-point strategy in the Middle East where they had Iran and Israel, and between Iran and Israel, these were two big, well, Israel isn't very big, but two militarily powerful countries who were fairly far apart. They're not very far apart. And between them, they were able to exert a ton of proxy influence in the Middle East. This strategy was kind of ruined in 1979. Thus, the US has been, since then, strengthening its ties with Israel and also sort of replacing its previous ties with Iran with the Sunni monarchies in the Gulf. Primarily Saudi Arabia, but also the others. So the reason why Iran is considered so important to Israel is partly because of that, and also obviously because the current government in Iran is one of the few governments in the region that has legitimate independent geopolitical power, independent of the Western powers, independent of Israel, and thus causes problems for the West and Israel. So running an operation like this is very convenient for them. It's something that they need, something that, if the government in Iran was overthrown and replaced with literal pro-West monarch, pro-Israel monarch, that would be very good for them and the West, obviously. So that's why they support this. It's basically taking things back to the status quo of before, except even worse, because if that happened, basically every single government in the Middle East would be a Western puppet and Israeli aligned. So yeah, except Yemen, obviously, all except Yemen. So the visit by the Israeli Crown Prince was covered back then. Reporters echoed the official line. The visit was proof that there is no animosity between the Israeli and Iranian peoples, but only between the Israeli government and the regime in Tehran. So a visit by an unelected monarch who hasn't been back to the country that he claims he represents the people of in 50 years. That's proof that there's no animosity between the peoples of these countries. This one man represents the people of these countries. While Pahlavi enjoys some popularity among the Iranian expat community, it's far from clear that Iranians want him as a leader. because he was the son of a former dictator who enjoyed Israeli and American patronage, and he carries the political baggage of his father, whose rule was known not only for its openness to Western culture, but also for corruption, political repression, and the torture and murder of opponents. Unlike his father, Reza carries messages of peace, democracy, and human rights, the standard Western fare with their puppets. When asked at a conference, he said that he can only succeed with international support, which justified his visit to Israel. When asked about the responses he was getting to his visit to Israel, Iran's arch-enemy, he said reactions had been largely positive. He referred reporters to his social media accounts. Don't take my word for it. Search on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, on any platform. If you do the research yourself, you don't need to ask me the question. The answer is right before your eyes. Clearly, he's implying there's people who support him on social media, which proves everything that he's saying and that he's the leader that the Iranians want. His regime is what the Iranians want. But then it's like, okay, so these posts on social media, who's making them? It's Israel! It's Israel! Israel is making these posts. It's all Israel. It's all fucking Israel. Pahlavi's answer is particularly noteworthy now in light of the findings by Haaretz and the Marca, Haaretz's business newspaper. It turns out a large-scale digital influence campaign in Persian was underway, operated out of Israel, and funded by a private entity that receives Israeli government support. So this is literally the Israeli government paying for a campaign to paint this guy as like a legitimately popular Iranian leader. This campaign promotes Pahlavi's public image and amplifies calls for restoring the monarchy. The campaign relies on avatars, fake online personas, posing as Iranian citizens on social media. They were first discovered by social media researchers in Israel and abroad. According to the sources who spoke with the Marca and Haaretz, since the outbreak of the war in Gaza and after Pahlavi's visit, an online operation began operating as part of an even broader Israeli campaign to influence social media discourse, which also includes campaigns in English and German. According to 5 sources with direct knowledge of the project, native Persian speakers were recruited for the operation. 3 other sources confirmed the connection between the project and this specific campaign and said they witnessed the network advancing pro-Pahlavi messaging. So they literally recruit Iranian diaspora to make a ton of fake bot accounts or help with the making of these fake bot accounts to make it look like this guy has support when he has none. Paid by Israel, funded by the Israeli government. According to sources, the campaign included fake accounts on platforms such as X and Instagram, and used artificial intelligence tools to help disseminate key narrative, craft its messages, and generate content. The operation was funded by taxpayer money and designed to serve Israel's geopolitical interests. Of course, he's always been a puppet, hasn't he? The sources stressed the campaign only looked foreign. Its origins were in Israel. The operation involved the commissioning of services from external suppliers, private actors free to sell the services to clients beyond the Israeli state. And these aren't the only accounts active in this space as well. Haaretz was originally approached by researchers at the University of Toronto who discovered a pattern of obviously fake, supposedly Iranian pro-Israel accounts and Iranian monarchy restoration accounts. And then Haaretz investigated this, and they found that there's networks of this all around the fucking world in Israel, all making fake pro-Iranian monarchy content. This is insane how far-reaching this is. The campaign included dozens of fake accounts pushing out AI-generated content, which is very likely operated by the Israeli government or by a contractor acting on its behalf. Their report's conclusion that based on what the Institute found to be signs of synchronization between the online campaign's content and Israeli military actions during the 12-day war with Iran. This includes signs the operators had prior knowledge of Israel's attack on Iran's infamous Evin prison. Yeah, they bombed a literal prison where anti-Iranian government dissidents are kept, by the way, and massacred them. So that was clearly pre-planned, given they had content ready to say to excuse it. They massacred anti-government activists in Iran while claiming to be the representative of the anti-government forces in Iran. Amazing, right? You are claiming to represent your people, the true voice of your people, supposedly, and you're bombing your people. Rather, you're supporting the bombing of your people and justifying it on social media. And then, shock horror, it's not actually people. It's the Israeli government running a fucking influence campaign with AI. A social media research into the network that was previously exposed by Haaretz identified hundreds of suspected fake users on X promoting Pahlavi, sharing his messages, and using hashtags like King Reza Pahlavi. What a fucking narcissist. What an absurd narcissist. Israel is look, we're going to run an Israeli taxpayer-funded campaign to have people glaze you on social media, just a bunch of fake accounts to make it look like you're people like you and call you the king. And this guy's yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, I want to be sucked off by AI all day, I'm in. What a loser. What a total loser fraud even in general. Like, this is just pathetic on the face of it. They are so insanely on the nose with this as well. The account that raised their suspicions and exposed the network was an AI-generated video titled Next Year in Free Tehran that had Reza Pahlavi, Netanyahu's wife, like the Israeli communications minister, and her husband walking through Tehran together. Why do you think actual real Iranians would like that? Who is that for? Israelis? Like, if you were an actual real Iranian who was legitimately like critical of your government, didn't like your government, wanted it replaced with something else, and you saw an AI-generated video of Netanyahu walking through the streets of like a hated self-proclaimed monarch taking over your country, I would distance myself from that quite a bit personally. That's an insane thing to post. The most striking case linking the network of accounts to Israel is an online campaign that coincided with a real-world campaign, the Israeli strike on the infamous Evin prison, which houses Iranian dissidents. Yeah, I explained what this was earlier. Let's see what they have to say about it. The Israeli strike occurred at around 11:15 a.m. and lasted about an hour. At 11:52 a.m., before the first Iranian media reports even came out, so they had no way of knowing about this unless they had connections to the Israeli government and military, the network's accounts began reporting explosions in the prison area. These posts were designed to create the impression that they were accounts belonging to Iranians living in the area. That's fucking bizarre, right? So Israel intentionally targeted this prison full of anti-Iranian government dissidents. Why the fuck did they do that? Are they trying to like eliminate rivals to the Shah in the like anti-government circles? That's the only possible reason I could imagine this. And clearly, like, this network of fake accounts knew about this beforehand. So this was definitely planned. It wasn't like they accidentally hit the prison when they're trying to hit something else. No, they hit it intentionally. And that's the only possible reason that I can come up with, at least on the top of my head, as to why they would do that. They had like AI videos of fake AI videos purporting to show the attack ready to go that they uploaded as it was happening before it was reported in the media. That's crazy. What the fuck? Oh, this is why. This explains it. Sorry, there's another reason. So after the strike, the accounts had posts ready and videos ready, encouraging people to go to the prison and free their family members. Citizen Lab concluded that the campaign aimed to create unrest that could help destabilize the regime. So they were hoping that by bombing the prison and massacring the people who were there, people would go to the prison and break out the people who were there and like launch a revolution against the government or something. Kind of counterproductive. I think if you want to launch a revolution, you don't kill the people who you imagine will be carrying out the revolution. You know, you don't bomb them and massacre them and destroy and blow their heads up. But, you know, these are Israelis. They don't really know any better. That's their number one strategy, is to explode people's heads and their bodies and just kill their family. That's all they know how to do. So all of these accounts started saying like, Tehran is defenseless. Guys, my Iranian friends, go out. I'm 100% real Iranian, not AI generated. Go out into the streets, take over, overthrow the government, storm the banks, withdraw your money, go and kill Khomeini. That's what all of these accounts were saying as this was happening. So yeah, this like entire pro-Shah movement is just Israel. It's Israel. It's all Israel. Like all of it is Israel. When you see these like Iranian diaspora people on social media, they are literally Israeli ops. They are 100% Israeli ops. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the same with like all these other pro-Israel diaspora groups like the Lebanese Maronites and stuff like that. I would not be surprised at all if all of them are being funded and propped up by Israel, if not just outright AI generated by Israel, as is in this case. I'm not saying that there's no legitimate anti-government Iranians, because there obviously is. That's who the people in the fucking prison are. But I'm pretty sure the legitimate anti-government Iranians who aren't just like rich fucks pissed that they had to flee Iran because their complicity with the Shah was exposed post-revolution. I'm pretty sure most of those people would not want to be associated with Israel. They wouldn't like videos of Netanyahu walking through the streets of Tehran as if he owns the place. And they definitely don't want a monarch, especially like the descendant of a monarch who like murdered and tortured people for decades, who was just a US puppet, a US, British, Israeli puppet. So yeah, what a bombshell thing. Just remember, when you argue with an Israeli on social media who's anonymous, even the ones who aren't anonymous, when you argue with like these weird people who are like so weirdly pro-US, pro-Western imperialism, pro-Israel, to the point that like they cheer on the bombings of what are supposedly their own people. It's just an Israeli bot farm. It's an Israeli AI bot farm psyop. It really is that simple.